cuffs are off, man.
Hey everybody, Adam Rank here.
What's up, friends? Daniel Dopp here from the Fantasy Focus Football Podcast over on ESPN.
It's Fabs here, Michael Fabiano from Sports Illustrated.
You know who you can trust? If you've got some questions about your fantasy squad,
Want to check out a cool show on YouTube that'll help you get ready for the fantasy football season?
check out the Get Right Fantasy Network.
Check out the Get Right Fantasy Network. If you are not subscribed, what are you waiting for? You want to lose your league?
Head on over to YouTube. Check out the Get Right Fantasy Network because they're doing everything they can to make you a better fantasy player.
You got to get right with the Get Right Fantasy Network.
So go and roll your sleeves up, yeah, go and roll your sleeves up. And I'm getting down, cause I roll my sleeves up. And I'm getting right, cause I roll my sleeves up. And I'm getting right, cause I
What's going on, YouTube land? I say another episode, but yet it was originally going to be, maybe we'll just start calling this Fantasy After Dark. So welcome in to another episode of Get Right here, Kendall Vanderbilt, T. So I don't post a ton on X, by the way. I plan to at some point, but the fantasy football in the X streets, not my favorite place. I kind of dislike the spicy takes on spicy takes. I like to be a little more nuanced, and there's not enough characters for me to type to get my thoughts out. So I will try my best to get a little more observations out there when I have a chance, though. But to any of you guys hopping in at some point or watching a little bit later on, apologize. Sorry, I was chatting with Classic Mike for a little bit after our mock draft breakdown, but glad to potentially have you here a little bit later on. We'll see, depending on what's going on in the world tonight in various places in fantasy football land. I've gone till 2 a.m. before. We've done some short streams before, but the point is always is to slow it down a little bit. Sometimes with fantasy football it's a lot of speed run, say as many words as possible about something because you got to move on. You got to get to the mock. You got to get to other things. And this is a show I always wanted to do where we can just take a step back. We can make really good observations about a mock. I need a competitive mock, and I've got the community for it over here with the Get Right in the surrounding communities, like folks like Picadelphia's a wonderful Discord and others. The Scott Fishbowl community as well typically hops in, which is quite nice as well. But I like to look at how do we every single year ADP changes, situations change, our decision-making process as fantasy football players changes a little bit as well, but not as much. And I want to kind of break down as a community, the ADP starts one place and then slowly moves. Their sleeper ADP, Fantasy Pros, got to love them. Their ACR, always been a day one, maybe day zero diehard fantasy footballers fan. So of course I got the UDK going on as well, but all these ADP sets, it's how can we break down super competitive mock drafts? We can figure out the different angles and preparations for how the draft board could fall for us in various types of redraft mocks this year and really suss out some spots so we can, at a minimum, if we get it wrong, we want to feel good about it because we know that we give ourselves a very realistic, calculated shot at winning some fantasy titles. So I'm going to go ahead and try to get our draft board pulled up from our most recent mock draft we just did a few short moments ago. It was a banger, quite a good mock draft as well, which was nice, and one I thought the ADP would probably move around a little bit as well. So let's take a peek here and see what we like, see what could make a little bit of sense here. So I get oriented around the draft board over here. Let's do this guy. All right. So this was our draft board from earlier. I'm actually going to put that over here, make it a little more visible. Yeah, that's pretty good. So like usual, I'm going to start and I'm going to break down my draft. going to go ahead and break down Classic Mike's draft from what I was seeing a little bit. And then I might look at a couple of interesting observations, pick ranges, and players that I thought were interesting. So I started off drafting from the 104. So for those that didn't mock with us, by the way, this was a 1-quarterback mock, PPR. We do a couple of different formats. We go back and forth between Superflex and 1 quarterback. We tend to do 3 wide receiver double flex for the most part. We're going back and forth, though. We did 2 wide receiver double flex, as a lot of leagues that were the old school traditional 2 RB, 2 wide receiver, tight end single flex. Many of them added that additional flex, and that's where a lot of intermediate and a lot of competitive leagues, honestly, are there. I know a lot of the D-Gen leagues are more 3 wide receivers. The Best Ball Bro community definitely likes your 3 wide receiver leagues a little bit more. But occasionally we trim down the 1 wide receiver just to make sure we're getting a little bit of a difference. And so the way it started, drafting from the 104, knowing that Chase almost exclusively goes 101, I was very sure I was going to get, one of the big 3 running backs for me. Not that I don't love a lot of other running backs as well, but for me, I'm very happy with any of these 3, and I would never consider a wide receiver over them. Rafi, good to have you here, my friend. Love 2+ flex leagues. Absolutely. It's just more fun to not have an amazing bench and be able to put them into your lineup. And also, like, the weekly decision making, I think, is underrated. If you can have at least 2 flex, maybe 3 flexes, right? Yeah, some folks think you're introducing variance, but it does change the draft process considerably. When in the thinner formats with just a single flex, you really were drafting these handcuff running backs because your bench didn't matter as much. You only used it in seldom spots. And with 2 flex and then 3 flex, the ability to draft and identify contributors that at like the wide receiver 3 RB2 level becomes so important. And balancing early production with later upside becomes more of a sliding scale versus like an objective one way or another. It's just more fun. And then the weekly flex decisions of what's my lineup going to kind of look like, playing the matchups, knowing your opponent a little bit. Yeah, I'm a bigger fan of more flex, certainly. And I think we'll see more of that with the Scott Fish Bowl this year with the, I guess what we're calling the ultra flex format, right? Full positionless, if you will. I think you're going to see going into next year and even possibly this year with redraft being quite a bit after Scott Fish Bowl. I think you'll probably see more flexes coming out. But anyway, breaking down my draft here real quick. We started Bijan. We were going to take Bijan, Gibbs, or Barkley. And then on the wheel, this was a somewhat interesting choice. And let me be honest, when I'm doing these mocks, I would not necessarily use all of my drafts as like, ooh, this is like, if Kendall were really, really trying his hardest, this is exactly what he would draft. I'm going to make some odd choices here and there. A lot of my picks are going to be pretty representative of spots I would, but doing the streaming thing, talking, you can't queue up and be as locked in as you would want to. So I'll be the first to say sometimes I make a few picks that I wouldn't otherwise have made. But I don't think I made too many of those. But let's break down some choices. So looking at the board at my second round pick, it was not between too many names, but just I'm quickly looking between the running backs and the wide receivers here. I was not going to consider AJ Brown. For me, he's just not someone I want as my wide receiver 1, or I don't always like when people say I don't want him as my wide receiver 1. It's like you're not really drafting a wide receiver 1, you're drafting a second round. And so my opinion, I'm just trying to draft the highest point scoring available. It would be nice if I could be balanced here. But for me, Jonathan Taylor is held back in ADP strictly because he was going at the 1-2 turn last year. He's held down by the stink of the offense, not because his own natural talent wasn't fantastic. And is the only good thing of that offense in the later half of last season, people still weren't able to stop him. I think he's a dominant NFL player. And I think he will be for at least another year, maybe 2. And so I do see Taylor as a guy who I think should finish as a top 5 RB. He doesn't have to. A lot of these guys are quite good, but it's more or less if he does what I think he should do. I mean, he could be top 3. He doesn't have the pass catching, but he's very good. I don't see him as like a locked in top 3, but like an RB5 with the floor just not falling out because he's pretty stable, like 5, 6, 7, somewhere in there. That feels pretty good. So it was between JT and Jacobs were really my choices at running back. I was considering reaching for a Garrett Wilson, but I typically get him in the 3rd. Not everyone's in on Garrett Wilson. It feels like a mistake to take him in the 2nd when he just typically falls. So maybe I'd have to change that a little bit. But for me, I didn't feel bad about it. JT represented upside plus floor. And for me, I tend to like so many of the middle round wide receivers. We'll get to it later, but everyone knows Downs is my guy. I'm starting to fall a little bit more in love with Reed. I love Pearsall. I think Diggs is ahead of schedule and is going to be quite good. I want to be taking wide receivers 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9th round in particular is where it starts to thin out for me, not just in this draft, but most drafts. And then 10 is where it's usually officially over for me. But I love so many wide receivers. And for me, like in this particular draft, running back for me completely out of the question by 7. And even Aaron Jones at 6'9". I mean, it's okay, but the wide receivers there still feel quite nice. So I have a lot of wide receiver 2s this year that I like a lot. I have a lot of lower ranking wide receiver 1s that I like as well. And so because of how many guys I like later at wide receiver, I say later, what I mean by that is later than the 2nd and 3rd round, more 4 through 7 or so. And I want to be taking wide receiver there. I've oftentimes felt like I've been forced into an extra running back in that range because I had to. And if I could just free up a wide receiver that I really want to take, but I have to take a running back, it feels like why not just take JT into a guy I'm already above market on, and we'll do that double elite RB, and then it should open up some other builds for us. So let's go through the draft a little bit more, but I didn't necessarily feel any regrets throughout most of this. But I think this is, to a different point, why a lot of folks prefer the 1-2 turn versus an early pick this year. Pretty big benefit of having Bijan. But I think Bijan compared to what I get, love McCaffrey. I'd love everyone knows really as you get into the AJ Brown, even Jacobs, I'm a little lower on than I'd like to be. The later part of the 1st round does feel a little chalkier to me, but we'll see. I should say the 2nd and 3rd round picks, if you're an early pick, feel a little bit tougher. It feels like you're reaching and you start to give away your edge of that 1st round earlier pick. So moving on to the 3rd round here, I wanted Garrett Wilson for sure. He's usually falling to me, and that would have felt fantastic. Obviously, it didn't happen. Challenging part here was I love Breece Hall and I love Omarion Hampton. I would have happily taken them at 3, but I cannot go 3 running backs in a row in this format. It just doesn't make any sense. So this is where it did sting a little bit. I ultimately went Tyreek Hill. I just wanted a lot of upside. I wanted a chance to. I know I've got an edge at running back. If this goes the way it should go, I probably don't need to draft a ton of running backs. And if I can bank on Bijan and JT, both being top 5 running backs, I just don't want to fall too far behind at wide receiver. So that's a case for maybe some stability. But in a super competitive mock, and if this were a league, it would be a pretty elite league. I wanted an upside play versus let's stabilize the team. So I ended up going with Tyreek Hill. Others in consideration, though, because it's not about who I picked. It's about my range of picks. It was going to be Tyreek or Marv and JSN and Adams. Adams legitimately was in consideration at 3-4, but because of playing the ADP game a little bit, hard to justify it. So it was more realistically between Tyreek and Marv, if I'm being honest. I was considering being a little bit more aggressive on Marv. I do think he is talented. I think there were varying amounts of issues that could have happened in year 1. The year 2 wide receiver breakout's a real thing. We don't really expect rookies to do what they do, but a lot of folks have been doing it. And so we look at folks that didn't as disappointments, but that's just not the historical case in the NFL. And I think when you look at his rookie season, Marv's, compared to a lot of great wide receiver prospects, he didn't have a bad season. He just wasn't the guy we wanted him to be. And I don't see too many reasons why he couldn't be very good. I think his upside is like a top 5 wide receiver probably aren't there. I don't think the volume will be there. There's a lot of reasons to not think, but to think he could be a low end wide receiver 1, finish as somewhere between wide receiver 10 and 15. I think that's very, very possible with some upside cases since he is that talented. So I could see taking Marv as early as Tyreek. The difference is I've seen Tyreek literally be the wide receiver 1, and I know he has the physical skills to do so. Where I don't like is I think the Dolphins O-line got a little bit worse. And Tyreek is getting older, obviously. He's one of the only old players I tend to draft. But there was that year we were drafting Debo a little bit later and he smashed. I see Tyreek as kind of I drafted CMC when other people weren't willing to, saying, hey, if the injury's not there, it's hard to find value in the first 2-3 rounds because everyone's pretty close. Tyreek to me feels like a guy that could easily finish right alongside Neighbors and ASB, who are going at 106, 107. And so it's riskier, but I'm playing to win, not playing to get third. Then that feels gross. Let me tell you why. It feels gross because if you're really good at what you do, you should be more risk averse, right? If you're playing at a poker table where you think you're the best player at the table, you're going to chase less flush draws, right? Because you can win in so many other ways. If I'm trying to play and practice like I'm playing against top-end competition, I think I want to take more of the best ball street mentality of I want to go for an elite outcome. And if it doesn't happen early, I'm going to hit the waiver like crazy. I'm going to try to make trades. I'm going to try to do something. Or this is why I'm in more than one league. I'm not going to base everything off of Tyreek, but I want him in the portfolio at cost occasionally, right? There's going to be other teams where I have some Garrett Wilson and some other things. But in this particular spot, Tyreek felt like the most upside. And it's hard to see him outside of injury. If he doesn't get injured, it's hard to see him. Do you guys really think that, Tet and DJ Moore and versus Tyreek Hill in an uninjured to his healthy situation? Like, I think we're going to give Tyreek the edge 10 times out of 10 if he's not injured and there's a healthy Tua. These are ifs, but there's ifs to everyone else too. Let's be honest. It's just that he's easy to pick on. So Tyreek in 3. Y'all know by the end of the season, we could be like, oh, by week 2, we could be like, oh, that was a mistake. And I'm going to try to take an advantage. So Tyreek over Marv in that spot. Coming back around, wanting to stay a bit balanced, but Kittle for me is already my tight end 2 over McBride. Las Vegas they drafted Genty. They are going to run the ball a lot. I think Bowers is fantastic. I don't think Bowers has to, be completely world-beating because Kittle is and has been world-beating. And between Bowers' talent and Kittle's talent, I think they're pretty close. But I think San Francisco is projected to be a better offense than Las Vegas. I think San Francisco has a better quarterback. I think Kittle is completely beloved by the organization in a way that Bowers hasn't been there long enough to develop that sort of bonding chemistry that Kittle has with his teammates and his coach in ways that Kittle is basically their wide receiver 1. I think they're probably going to look at him that way to some extent. And so getting basically a round and a half, 2 rounds of value on the top 2 feels great. And in previous mocks, I had noticed that this year I'm going hyper late quarterback per usual. But I found that the favorite tight ends that I have are everyone else's favorite tight ends. And I'm getting in a spot where I'm often getting sniped. I want Njoku, I get sniped. I want Kraft, I get sniped. And I don't like every single tight end in the book. The point of going late tight end is so you can grab a target that you have that you think could finish considerably higher. But that's not an endless list. Like, I like Strange. I like Ferguson. I just mentioned 4 tight ends that I like a lot. But everyone else is in on them too, and everyone else that's going late tight end is thinking exactly how I am. And if it's a really competitive league, they're thinking exactly how I am. They've probably seen me draft. They might have listened to the show. So if I had to pick, what am I okay being sniped on and what am I not? What tier list at those positions is thinner for me? And for me, it's tight end. I have less tight end targets than I do late quarterback targets. I have an infinite amount of late quarterbacks that I can find a pretty good case for, that I like, that are palatable. And I don't mind streaming the quarterback position either, especially this year in particular. So for those reasons, if I'm going to go early at a position, it's more than likely going to be tight end. And specifically, if I have one favorite tight end to draft earlier, it's George Kittle. I mean, arguably, last year he was basically, you had to take him in the early 5th because he would never make it out of the 5th round typically. 5-6, turn was minimum. And sometimes he would go as early 5th. Sometimes you'd see him 4th, 5th round right at the turn, felt a touch early for his ADP, if I can remember correctly. The team lost a lot more pass catching stuff, and they're going to start off the season with Ayuk a little banged up, and Juwan Jennings is banged up, and Pearsall can get banged up. I mean, it just feels like Kittle is going to be the guy on that offense. So here, it felt like a smash pick at 4-9 for me. When I saw him still on the board, it was like, it's not close for me with the positional edge I can get. In case he got taken at 4-8, though, let's just say he got taken at 4-8 or 4-6 or something along those lines. My pick would have been, I'm hoping that Devontae falls. That's an easy pick. If they're both gone, I'm smash taking Tet McMillan here for the upside play. I think he has more upside than Cortland Sutton, Zay Flowers. I really like Zay. Like, I like this whole round. If this were like a dynasty or if this were an auction league, this is a range that I want to smash. I think there's a good value here, and I would be buying a lot of these players. But I like Tet. I like Tet quite a bit here. Sorry, I know he doesn't like going by Tet. I like T-Mac here. And I know that this big flat range of, like, I like Sutton, DK. I actually don't mind Flowers. I like Worthy. I mean, I like literally all these players. Literally, this entire tier I like straight up. I don't like Rashee Rice as a human being. I like him as a fantasy player, but that kills it for me. The point is, when you like a tier that for you is flat, probably shouldn't reach for it because there's not a big difference. And for me, Kittle was the difference. So if he hadn't gone, I would have been looking at playing the ADP game between, I would have taken 2 of T-Mac, Sutton, Metcalf, Worthy, etc. Would have most likely been T-Mac first, followed by probably Worthy and then DK. Well, DK, then Worthy, probably something along those lines. DK, I think, has some pretty insane upside, but Worthy has Patrick Mahomes. They're close for me. I think they can both have pretty elite ceilings. DK, safer floor, less potentially injury prone with his body type. So anyways, that's how that would be. Hoping to wheel one of the other guys I probably can't get. I can almost assure you this 5th round wide receiver choice, no matter what happens, other people in this range are going to crush it this year. And I am going to regret it because I am in on this whole tier, and I will convince myself after it happens that I could have picked the guy. So we'll see what that ends up being. But so that's how we got to 5-4. I get Mike Kittle, comes back around to me, and I take DK. I'm staring down Worthy. I'm staring down Pickens, JMO, Devontae, Travi not really in consideration with the other guys on the board. Devontae not really in consideration. JMO with the ADP game probably doesn't make sense here. I could, I probably won't wheel him, but like maybe he was in consideration. It's JMO, Worthy, Metcalf here for me. Flowers is on a good offense, but a lot of mouths to feed, so maybe not. Yeah, DK for me has the highest upside. I'm already going balls to the walls with Tyreek. DK is not exactly the safest pick, but he kind of is, though, right? There's no one else. Rodgers will hyper target him. We know they're going to run the ball a ton, but we also don't project them to be winning in the fourth quarter more than half of their games. So the fourth quarter DK, you got to make something happen. And the fact that DK Metcalf is probably their best red zone weapon as well. And I think this is probably one of the smarter quarterbacks DK's played with. I mean, he's played with some decent quarterbacks, but Rodgers is like football smart. He's got some weird worldviews and things of that nature. You can say what you want to, but he's always been a pretty savvy, high IQ football player. And I think he understands the game to a deep level, understands how to use players. He got a lot of players that were not as talented, as physically gifted, but were smart. So I think he can work with DK. And it wouldn't surprise me if DK had an outlier, finally has a big season. I could certainly see that. If we're willing to say, man, Calvin Ridley probably should have a pretty big year this year, we should be saying that about DK too, for somewhat correlated reasons. So yeah, through 5, we got 2 stud RBs that I love. Less popular picks at wide receiver, but I don't think anyone would disagree that they probably wouldn't put too much money against, like, you're not going to be crazy surprised if those guys have outlier upside seasons. You'd say, at worst, I just didn't think it was a big chance, but of course it was a chance. I'm just saying I think it's a bigger chance than it is. Moving on to round 6 over here. And I got to be honest, I wasn't even looking. I didn't have the quarterback tab opened just because it clouds the vision. And, Hurts has to be in consideration here. Kind of just has to. I'm not even sure if it's correct, to be honest with you, even though Hurts in 6 sounds insane value, but I'm not sure. But when you compare with the players I ended up taking, I mean, yeah, maybe Hurts is the play there. So probably. Also, if I'm being real, I don't think we have the mocks where every quarterback goes later. And I think in most leagues, this Hurts here probably is less realistic. So that's also why I tend to take him less, because I want to practice, like, in a league situation, I'm probably going to have late quarterback situation more often. Quinshawn was not in consideration. Why I ultimately went running back as a position was I was seeing a tier break drop off. Like, I like Jones, I like B-Rob, I like Jaylen Warren actually, but outside of that, ETN has questions. I think it's actually going to be more of a timeshare. Like, I was higher on ETN, but I mean, the training camp snap share really kind of tells me I think it's going to be a 2-headed monster that becomes a 3-headed monster, and I think they all get used. So a little bit gross. And everything else just starts to get a little bit muddy after that. Like, don't get me wrong, I like Mason. I like Spears. I think Rachaad White's a value pick. I really like J.K. Dobbins as well. I like these as, Javonte Williams going after handcuffs, basically. And I think he's going to be the day one starter with, 15 carries min. That felt pretty good when I took him. But the Jones pick was hey, this could get thin. If I take Jones here, I think I probably need like one more running back the entire rest of the draft, and that's it. And it'll free me up. And I figured I was going to wheel any number of guys that I like. The consideration was, do I reach? Like, do I go and take a Josh Downs at 6'9" so that I can also take Diggs or Ricky Pearsall as well? And I just figured, why don't I just take Jones, knowing that a lot of running backs will go, and then maybe I can get 2 wide receivers, 1 in 7, 1 in 8 that I both like, and I won't be in a situation where I'm having to make a nasty pick at running back when I don't want to. Unfortunately, it felt like the best pick in 9 and 10 was at the running back position. Kind of. These were rushed picks because I was doing other takes. I wanted Egbuka to come back to me in 9, so I had to just take what I thought was a really valuable running back pick, and I thought Spears would be the last running back I drafted in the whole draft, to be honest. And then Higgins got taken. After taking Jaden Reed, I wasn't going to take Matthew Golden, but Pittman was potentially in consideration with Downs, and Golden, I guess it was in consideration, to be honest. More realistically, I was hoping, Ayuk coming back, that IR spot, this will feel really good. Nice value way to use that. He gets taken. So honestly, after Ayuk went and Garendo went, I looked at the board. I didn't love wide receiver as much. I was hoping to wheel Wandale, and technically I did, but I just wasn't looking deep enough on the board. I ended up saying to myself, hey, it's only a start 2 wide receiver league. Javonte is kind of a value here. It feels gross because we went RB heavy at the top and then somehow we took more. Maybe not my favorite, but it just felt like a valuable pick. And then coming back around at so anyways, going back a little bit, Aaron Jones. I took Aaron Jones to maybe just solidify, and then I knew I was going to like wide receiver 7 through 9, 10. And I did. That is what happened. I reached for Downs, but he would have gone. Everyone knows I like him. I think this is a great spot for him. Not that Diggs is consideration. I think Diggs is good. It's just Downs is my guy. I'm going with him. As I do more and more drafts, Diggs is rising up my boards pretty considerably, though, just being honest. But I think the chance that Diggs has lost enough of a step and they could get everyone involved, and I like their running game, but their O-line isn't great. There's just a lot of question marks behind how the range of outcomes for those wide receivers will be. And Downs for me is like the clear cut, maybe not wide receiver 1, although I think he functionally will be. I think he's the reason the passing offense can work under any quarterback. And I think he's going to be quite good. I mean, if it's Daniel Jones, this is a better Wan'Dale Robinson. And a better Wan'Dale Robinson is already a baseline of 100 catches. So, yeah, sign me up. And I think Downs is just more talented. Nothing against Wan'Dale, but Downs is dope. He's just a good player. So happy to take him here. And then I get my wheel in a good wide receiver. Again, it was between Reed and Igbuka here. I was hoping to go 1-2. It didn't happen, but great picks. And then this felt good. This draft would have felt awful if I had just had no wide receivers left. Like if this isn't Reed or Igbuka and it has to be Higgins, I am feeling worse because I think Higgins needs maybe a little more time. But getting wide receivers that I actually believe in a little bit more, Reed's fallen really out of favor. But I mean, he is their wide receiver 1. They were as run heavy as it gets. That should change a little bit. I'm just saying regressing towards the mean is more common than less common. So it's more likely that they throw the ball more and are more successful than less likely. How much more is interesting because a team doesn't have to just move a little bit. A team can move a lot. A team can get a lot pass heavy pretty quickly. And they have the weapons to do so. And I think they need an offensive philosophy change if they want to go for a Super Bowl rather than just do the Steelers thing. And if they end up like, oh, Love is healthy, he wants to throw the ball more, the NFC North has better offense. I've given you the reasons before earlier, but for those reasons, Jayden Reed is my wide receiver 4. Feels really good because he's my wide receiver 4. And in this format, my plan after going so RB heavy was to, I like a lot of these wide receiver 2s. I was going to collect a few of them and just make that work and be so overpowered at running back, and in my opinion, at least. I mean, Genty HN at 1924, then Kamara 39. That's pretty sick. So you could say like Vince did a one build where he actually did do the third running back. Because if I went third running back, it would have been, instead of Hill, I would have smash picked Hampton. Maybe some consideration for Breece Hall, but I love Hampton. Would have been one of those 2 and 3. And it would have been a very different draft to some extent. So Vince, I'm going to have to try that build a little bit more. I have not been unafraid to go RB in some drafts. It would have been weird this one because Kittle would have been a horrific pick at that point. And I could have faced disaster. So I decided to stay a little bit more even keel. But we'll try more 3 running back starts, even in a start 2 wide receiver league, just to see. Because I think it worked out great for Vince. JSN, JMO, my favorite pick of the draft, Ridley 6'4", and then a Godwin 7'9" that he does not need. Godwin can miss weeks 1, 2, and 3, and Godwin's his wide receiver 4. I mean, that's such a great pick. Reed with his suspension grabs Kelsey. I mean, Vince through 8 picks is winning this draft, in my opinion. That's so good. Not that I don't. I mean, me through 8, I'm going to give you a run for your money, Vince. If Tyreek and DK hit how they're supposed to, it's going to be difficult for you to catch up. But if even one of them doesn't do it, like I think you're more solid. You have more range of outcomes where you have a better record than me through 6 games. But I think when my roster hits, I think it's more of like a best ball, like tournament winner. So you get the point. But from a redraft lineup, I think yours is pretty unreal. So where are we at? That was the Downs, wheeled Reed as my wide receiver 4. And at this point, through 8 picks, I am feeling great. Super balanced. These are players that I like. It's a good draft. It's going the way I want to. I know I'm going to get super crazy value at quarterback later on. If I can take Kittle where I took him and still feel good, maybe not great, but good about my team in season, if Kittle outscores someone else's tight end by 7-8 points a game, that's going to be awesome. And I think that's fine. And it bakes an upside, right? If Kittle really is the tight end 1 or 2 at a high level of PPG, a tier break above the rest, if I hit on my other positions, that's the definition of a league winner. So that's for me. I know last year some people were considering like the Andrews Lamar stack, the early double elite position, and then have to figure it out. That did not do so well in a lot of ways. If I'm going to go elite, it's going to be tight end. So moving on, 9 and 10, I mentioned it was a tier break situation. It was, I like these other positions, but I just felt the better value was I like Spears a lot. He took Derrick Henry off the field 50% of the time. He's a talented running back. His biggest knock was that he had knee arthritis. And we all thought from a dynasty perspective that he wasn't going to last, flash in the pan, short career, one contract guy, but he's kind of just kept doing it, right? He was good and efficient and explosive, backing up Henry. And then, he was a fantasy league winner down the stretch. I say down the stretch, it was really, 2-3 games, but he looked good. He was good. The team was atrocious, but he never looked bad. He's a good pass catcher. He's quick. He reminds me almost like a little bit of like a Darren Sproles type of situation where just on a per touch basis, he's really, really good. And if a team ever wants to lean run heavy and you can get the usage rates of, a Gibbs Monty, maybe not the talent, but the usage level in a backfield, Spears profiles to be incredibly valuable. And in a team that I think got a massive offensive upgrade with a new quarterback that can make everything else around him a little bit better, you open up the passing game, you open up the running game. I think Spears has reasonable upside if that offense, as the offense as a whole projects to be better, and if you project the backfield as more of a straight up 1-2 punch, but having them still behind in games and needing someone to catch passes, Mason, is going 8-11, Jaylen Warren 7-6, ETN 7-5. I make the argument that on a per touch basis, Spears is more valuable. If he had the same snap share as those guys, he'd be easily better than them. But I think he scores similarly to them with less snap share, with an offense that's already said, they've been quoted in saying they'd like to even the split more. They want this to be more of a 50-50 backfield. So for those reasons, Spears is startable with a high level of upside. Happy to take him here, and did. On the way back, a lot of sniping, as I mentioned, and I was also in the middle of talking, and I'll be honest, I ended up taking Javonte here because I'm okay. I'm in on him this year. I'm not as big. I like Jaden Blue in Dynasty. I don't necessarily know how much he's going to do this year. I know Javonte can catch passes. I know he can catch a lot of them. I think the Dallas defense is going to be pretty awful. I think there's a chance that in the fourth quarter, Javonte is going to get a lot of dump offs. I think Dak is a quarterback that has been relatively favorable to dump offs from time to time, even with not even like amazing pass catchers. And so I think if they can develop a little bit of chemistry there, I think there's a decent range of outcomes where Javonte could be better than we think. So we'll have to see there. Rafi, what are we talking about here? Matt LaFleur may try to okie dokie everyone this year and go from run heavy and do play action pass 80% of the time. Look, I don't think you're on the same mind, meld I'm at, where he's too good of a coach and they're too good of a team to just not be in contention anymore. There was that time where we thought they were going to win a Super Bowl, and they kind of they didn't fall off, but they fell backwards a little bit, right? Drafting Matthew Golden, first round wide receiver in many, many years at a hometown draft. I mean, there's a lot of cards that could align where Jordan Love has a hyper efficient season where they do a lot of deep play action and it hits and it's fun. So it might not, but it could, and it's plenty plausible, right? And man, I'm all for it, to be honest with you. So we'll see. You tell me if Jacobs gets injured, you don't tell me that offense just has to start and become like crazy good. Yeah, that might be a thing. So anyways, the Javonte pick. You know, in my heart of hearts here, it feels like Wandale might have been a better pick, but depends how you want to go about it. Wandale versus Christian Kirk versus Luther Burden, pretty close, right? I was like, this is a condensed tier. I just thought Javonte, he's their RB1 and there's none left. It was just simply he's the cheapest RB1, and if he has an outlier upside outcome, this is a steal. And if it's not a good pick, it's not like I'm passing up some massive value elsewhere. So as soon as I took Javonte, I knew, okay, that's my last running back for sure. A running back I didn't want to, not that I didn't want to take him, but I didn't want to take any more running backs, I should say, right? And so we took him. Coming back around the turn, this was a bit of an experimental pick. I wanted to be able to break it down later and see what I thought, why I thought about it. It was just kind of a screaming, yeah, I looked back and I'm like, okay, I'm never taking Goff. I think he takes a steps back, but Dak feels good. I like Fields. I really like Herbert. JJ, I'm starting to warm up to. I was always Drake May over JJ McCarthy, but in redraft, I'm not talking dynasty. We're talking redraft. I think they're all going to be good. I like JJ. I like this. I'm not listing all the quarterbacks. I'm saying specifically, I do like Drake May. I like Brock Purdy. I like Jordan Love. I like McCarthy, and I like Herbert, and I like Dak. Every single one of these guys is a target for me, and they're all available. So I took Kyler saying, okay, I like all these quarterbacks. Probably everyone else does. Do I take Kyler here and then create a quarterback run, essentially, where by the time I get to 13, all the quarterbacks are gone and very few positional players went off the board? Because I expected there could be a quarterback going to Fanta, at 7. You got Vince at 9. And then I guess I could have looked at the turn and said, well, classic and buy and sell aren't. So on the way back, you don't have as many. And I could have just looked at what teams have quarterbacks and saying, oh, this is how the board plays every year. This year, I mean, with the quarterbacks. So I really took Kyler as I want to look back and say, do I think Kyler is that much better than these other quarterbacks? What was the if then? And if it wasn't Kyler, it was certainly going to be Wandale. And then what would have happened? I think the most likely outcome is I liked Kirk Burden was going to happen one way or another for sure. I wanted that badly. And if Burden had gotten taken or Kirk at either of those spots, I probably would have been very comfortable going with the other one and then quarterback in 13. That probably would have happened. So instead of Kyler, I would have had Wandale. And then in that case, probably instead of Burden at 13, I would have had Herbert. It would have been Herbert. So do I like Kyler in 11 or Herbert in 13? With the wide receivers having basically, they're literally in the same tier for me, kind of. I do have Wandale a tier higher, if I'm being honest. Honest question to myself. I'm not quite sure. It does feel like I want to be more in on, if it's not Kyler, it's whatever the highest ranking quarterback in my ranks is that's still available. It happens to be Kyler here. I want them to be so much higher than everyone else because it would fit perfectly. But if the quarterbacks are all in a similar tier and everyone else is in a similar tier, and it's just 3 to 4 rounds of all kind of similar, what do we do here? Right? Well, I can tell you, look, for one, I'm glad we took Kittle at 4.9, or if we didn't, we would have needed to take him earlier because fully punting on tight end is when it gets a little bit difficult because I don't want to be forced to pick a quarterback and a tight end super late and get sniped on like my favorite guy because it's got to feel good if you're going to punt. Rafi talking about me taking Palmer. Yeah, that felt good. Normally, I'm last 2-3 picks should be running backs, right? Go wide receiver heavy. Do the draft the running back late because if they really hit, they hit harder than a wide receiver. But this year, some of these wide receivers late just feel like they're being completely disrespected for what they could be in their offenses, and not just could be, but kind of should be. Like Christian Kirk should be what Josh Palmer kind of almost recently was for a while. The Buffalo Bills, Vegas projects them to score the most points in fantasy in the NFL. Fantasy projections, right? So if the Buffalo Bills offense is supposed to score the most points, that means the wide receivers should do well. Some of them have to. I saw a video the other day. Maybe it was from Hayden Winks, or who was it? John Daigle. It was someone talking about, between Kincaid and Coleman, it feels like the offense needs one of them to do its thing, probably. And I guess I kind of had the take of, I don't know, man, Palmer just feels like he could step in and be really good for a team that needs to win now and be the adult in the room, the savvy route runner, the guy that needs to be the 2, not the 1, and just step in and be a really good 2, or a 3 that's really the 2A, 2B. That's kind of more like the 2A. I could see that being a thing. And if Kincaid just isn't a thing and it ends up being more 3 wide receiver sets, because Allen likes to run, but maybe they don't want to use the running game as much. Maybe they throw through the air because they have a lot of guys that can do short yardage, nice routes like Palmer can. He can do intermediate routes too, very, very well. Yeah, he could be nice. I don't know how much his upside is. I want it to be higher than I think it probably realistically is. So I think he's a better target in a 3 wide receiver setup, because I think at best he probably ends up being a flex fill-in. And how often do I want to start Palmer versus like a Spears or a Williams? I think the chances that a Spears or a Williams falls into the end zone might be a little bit greater than Palmer on a given week. But like Palmer with a plus matchup, Chiefs Bills or something along those lines, that feels like he's going to be a super elite flex. But I don't see him making it ever into my wide receiver 2 spot. So he's a rotating flex play. And I have to take that with a grain of salt. The level of upside you need with that level of pick needs to be high enough. And I'm concerned that he's just going to be a good flex. And is that good enough upside? Maybe. The answer is probably maybe. Yeah. And I think Palmer might even be a better pick than Luther Burden to some extent, if I'm being honest. So yeah, Palmer's nice. If I'm saying anything, do we have a point here? The point is, I took Murray to ask myself, is he that much better than these other quarterbacks? No. Did we all play the waiting game kind of together? Yes. Do I have targets that I like versus targets I don't like at the positions later on? Yes, I definitely do. Like, would I have rather had Ford over Burden? Yeah. Did I really want to wheel Giddens to lock JT in there? Yeah, kind of. I think it's fine either way. I don't think Kyler makes it to 11-4 in most money leagues, right? Only because I think quarterback, this entire, I just don't think Kyler goes this late. I think he probably goes at least around like the Spears Williams, like 9-10. Like, I think that's more realistic more often. So I'm not going to get Kyler at 11-4, because if it was between Kyler and Spears and Kyler and Williams, Kyler and Ayuk, something along those lines, no, I'm going to take the guy that I like. I only took Kyler here because I looked at everything else and I'm like, it's all the same. I guess I'll take the value at quarterback, right? So let's say Kyler's not in that tier. I like so many of these later guys that I think when it comes league draft time, I'm going to feel even better about this, because it won't be Kyler, but it probably will be a Wandale. And in this 12-13 range, it's going to be one of these quarterbacks that I like. It's going to change the pick order, but not the picks themselves, is I think how it's going to go down. So still liking late quarterback. We just got to be sharp about our pick order. I cannot wait. I want to do even more mocks, because I want to watch other mocks too, competitive ones. So I'm going to be watching a lot of, I'm a fan as much as any of you guys are with other content creators, analysts, alike. A fan of the game, fan of the grind. And I want to see some industry mocks. I want to see some competitive league mocks and see where the quarterback position, what it's doing. And if I can see that ADP get pushed up a little bit, it's more or less knowing your pick order and knowing how to play the board, versus analyzing this draft board for where players went. It's more about where they went in relation to their tier. Because you can reorganize positional tiers and say, oh, hey, this lobby quarterbacks went earlier. So, okay, Murray went 9-4, but maybe I get Spears and Williams like a round later because quarterbacks get bumped up. So it's the same draft in different order. I think that's more likely. Hopefully that makes sense. But that's my team. That was my draft. That was the thought processes in each and every pick. I guess I didn't go super deep on why I took these guys. We talked about Palmer a little bit, and I think most folks have the same take. We all kind of on the same area with Palmer. I don't have any super statistically oriented takes other than it's supposed to be the best offense, and he is a good player, and it's an ambiguous wide receiver room, and we know that's a good target. So, Rafi, I'm going to get to that in just a second. I'll end with that probably. But just real quick, Kirk for me is going massively undervalued because Higgins went way earlier, went 3 rounds earlier than Christian Kirk. Kirk was a pretty good one when he had the opportunity. I think he fits that Juju Smith-Schuster type of when Juju became the one for Pitt, it was not good, but he's a very, very good 2. I think Christian Kirk is a very, very good 2. And I think he, the camp report was, Christian Kirk could be CJ Stroud's safety blanket. Even I wish they hadn't come out with that report because that's what I was thinking he was going to be. A good slot wide receiver that can go a little bit longer. Like he's everything they wanted Tank Dell to be. If I'm being honest, I think he can play the Tank Dell role, but better than Tank Dell. And Tank Dell was getting some targets and good ones. So I think Kirk can step into that role as a savvy veteran who also understands NFL open and when and how to time and when to be open for his quarterback that has very limited protection. Or I don't know that Higgins is going to be all the way there mentally and adjusting to the NFL game as quickly as Kirk does. Could Higgins crush it the second half of the season? Yeah, I'm totally in on Higgins. But to start the year and maybe to finish it too, I think Kirk could be very, very good. And Nico's almost injury prone at this point, so like things could happen. So Kirk for me is kind of a steal, if I'm being honest, where he went. I like Shaheed too, but I think Kirk is significantly more reliable in an offense that has more ceiling. Doesn't have to hit it, but New Orleans doesn't have a ceiling. Houston does. And Luther Burden was I'm just drafting talent. I don't think he gets on the field enough to be relevant, but he is good with what he does, and he's an injury away anywhere from if he gets elevated playing time, the offense is better than it should. This is just me drafting talent and seeing what will happen. I don't project him very highly, but it's Luther Burden. He's spicy enough that maybe I could trade him too for something. Potentially. Could I flip Burden for Wandale after a bad game or something? Yeah, maybe or something. So Burden, I don't have a lot of takes here. He was just the spiciest name that I like there, and I took a spicy name that maybe has some upside, right? I could have just as easily here, if maybe a better pick, probably instead of going Burden, I should have gone Strange as a second tight end, knowing that if someone's tight end just straight up doesn't work out, Kelsey gets injured. Loveland. Perk only took Loveland. Let's say Loveland is just straight up unstartable by week 2. Me having a second tight end that I can trade for not much, but get some value from it, could make some sense. If I would have taken a Strange has a pretty good opening first 2 weeks. Hunter starts a little bit slow, playing more defense. What could I get? Can I trade into the low end of like the 8th round wide receivers? Yeah, I mean, maybe. That's not too far away. So I think it's worth considering drafting to trading and grabbing a second tight end in this range. So just to kind of fill that, I think Strange might have been a better pick than Burden in retrospect. And we already covered Palmer. So that's a full draft breakdown. Hope y'all enjoyed it. Let's I'm gonna take a little sip of my doing some gin and tonic today over here. Not my favorite gin. I'm going to throw the wife under the bus just a little bit here. And I speak extremely highly of her. And you guys know I do. But I let her run into the store instead of me. And she definitely got some gin that I am not a fan of. So we're having to throw some extra lime juice in here. Having to throw a little more tonic that I'm usually comfortable with. But that's what we're sipping on. You Tavern Master today doing the bartenders. Well, bartenders love gin and tonics, man. It's such a bartender drink. And for those that don't know, I was it's not just a moniker. I was a very, very talented bartender for many, many years. And I still love that job. Still try to in my spare time when I have time. So hopefully I'll make y'all several drinks on camera in season. We'll have a good time. Rafi, let's chalk, man. Sell me on Murray over Dak. Do I have to? Here's why I'm saying that. I don't know that I'm sold on that. I like Dak a lot. I like Dak a lot this year. I have one argument, but the best way I can answer your question, Rafi, is just by being real and saying they're in the same tier for me. They really are. You know, I think I have Kyler higher in the tier because I feel like I'm supposed to. But no, I'm better than that. So the idea here is that Kyler Murray, like Dak, has, when healthy, traditionally finished as a top 7 guy. Kyler, when using his legs, why were we so in on Kyler multiple times? And why were we so wanting him to be the guy last year? You know, Marv, Kyler, oh, what could be? He didn't just become a fantasy darling overnight. We saw him on the field being what we wanted him to be and doing what he needed to do. And man, he moves quick. So we always saw that he's actually a pretty good passer of the ball when he can see where he's throwing it. It's a big issue, but when he's running, man, he is a good runner, and the team needed him to run a lot, and they were from behind a lot. And when he was doing his thing, it was beautiful. And that rushing floor, I mean, he was just matchup proof. He could be so bulletproof and consistent. So where Dak, and I guess that offense to a greater degree hasn't always been super consistent, at least in the last recent memory. So here's the thing. I am trying to sell you on Murray over Dak, but in my opinion, like if you were saying Kyler went 2 rounds before Dak, I'd say, no, I'm just taking Dak, dude. If you're saying, no, you got to take one, who do you take? Man, I'm close here. Here's the crazy thing. I'm starting to talk myself into Dak might have been the pick at 11-4 instead of Kyler because I like Dak's weapons. I think Dallas defense is bad. I think they're going to have to come from behind against at least 2 teams in their division. I think when not injured, Dak's a good quarterback, and he has some of the better weapons he's had in a long time. And I think Dak is a better thrower of the football than Kyler. I'm just drafting Kyler because of the cheat code. It's the legs cheat code. If he has a good passing year, just an okay good passing year, and great with his legs, and has 8 rushing touchdowns, he'll throw for more yards than Jalen Hurts and rush for maybe just a few less touchdowns. And all of a sudden, oops, Kyler's a quarterback 5. And that feels fantastic. So it's just his legs. That's it. It's just the legs. It's the only reason I'd take him over it. And I'm starting to convince myself that just the legs isn't enough. So you're close. Dak has a blah defense. That's being kind. I think the defense is worse than that. But I think we agree here. And a worse run game. Yeah, that's a fair point too. Connor's going to get a lot more touches plus Benson than what they do over there. And Javante's best usage is probably in the passing game. CD and Pickens could both see 100 catches. I hope so. CD will catch 100 passes. Pickens, maybe they do more go routes, but and yeah, Dak having to throw 40 times a game. Yeah, I think if you're the Cowboys are not going to go with a conservative game plan. There's one thing you can say about how Dallas is going to operate because Jerry Jones still owns the team. Jerry Jones is not going to have them rush, at a top 10 rate and just be boring. That's not going to happen. They're going to go crazy and ball out, right? So for all those reasons, yeah, they might end up back to back in my rankings. I think if as my rankings sit and they're changing because Camp News changes a lot, I think I have them 2 spots apart. Like I think Goff probably splits them for me, but I'm going to easily move Dak above Goff if he's not already there, and Dak might be climbing above Murray. Yeah, I think I'm going to do it. No second wide receiver for Kyler. He has to run so much. He'd have to run so much. And Dak kind of doesn't. Dak can also run too. So, Rafi, we're just doing it. Right now, I'm taking Dak over Kyler. Yeah, I'm just doing it. The chances that one of them throws 35, 40 touchdowns is all in Dak's favor. So we got there in the end. Right now, Dak is one of my absolute favorite. And if I'm going to punt, I will take Dak before these guys because I think the offense, bad defense, everything could just line up for Dak to have a pretty dope season. So, yeah, I'm going to be watching him a little more closely. and seeing what I can suss out from that group. But Dak looking strong. And Kyler may be one that I want to work. It's the pick that feels right because he's always been ranked higher, but maybe he's not the right pick. So good call. Lessons learned, right? That's what this point is, right? That's why we go deep dive late at night. Fantasy After Dark. We're trying to make some big brain plays, moves. Willing to be wrong. We want to talk it out, see what makes sense, what doesn't. I'm a big heuristics guy. I know it's a big word. I'm not just trying to be elitist, but I like it because I think it's one of the more important things in fantasy. It's your thought process. It's your how you go about making decisions, what steps you take. And I think when we walk through this, Dak keeps coming up more and more favorable. And then it's how does he end up going? I think Kyler is a name that in more drafts, it will be like me staring him down at 11-4. So many people will do exactly what I just did. And you've seen me. I've done a couple of these drafts where I literally did quarterback, tight end, 13-14, 13-14. And he stared me down a little too much. And so I took him. I think more and more people will. Dak will still be in that tier of late quarterbacks because he is buried more in tight end, or buried more in ADP. Sorry. And Kyler won't. He will stick out as, another rushing quarterback, got to take him. The chances that Kyler goes off the board like within a round and a half of Bo Nix is usually pretty high. Probably the next round, right? Nix went that turn. Kyler probably goes round 10 at least, and I wouldn't take him there. So, well, we got there. We got there in the end, folks. Chat for those listening, for those tuning in. I have had a brutal week. It's been a good week, but a brutal week. And I have a lot of fantasy to talk tomorrow. Probably not stream. Maybe I'll do office hours tomorrow. Maybe as I'm literally putting together the mock draft tournament and doing some back of office stuff, I will just flick the camera on, hit go live, and see if anyone wants to me behind the curtain working on back end stuff. But I do have some fantasy work to get to tomorrow. I've got to sharpen up my rankings, get them all submitted. I'm really hoping to submit to Fantasy Pros this year in the expert program. Hasn't officially come in yet, but I hope it does. So I'm getting ready for it. And I'm trying to get my rankings ready for the website, doing some back end stuff to get ready for the mock draft tournament. Just so my guys have an easier time submitting the rankings and that sort of thing. I got to do some promotions. I actually got to take our mock draft tournament and actually let everyone know about it, get all the posts and do that thing. So for those that don't know, yeah, we host a mock draft tournament every year. I think most of you guys here know this, and if not, you'll probably be in our Discord at some point and check it out. But and I hope you do. But it's a mock every day: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Top 3 as voted by Get Right moves on to a finalist lobby on Friday. They do that mock. Top 3 is voted by us. Move on to a real money league. It's free for everyone else. We pay for it with some prizes, and if you win that, it's bragging rights as the mock draft champion of the year. It's kind of our thing, but if you can win that, I mean, being the stone cold best mock drafter, that's real bragging rights because the competition is no joke, and you're having to beat out not just the other 11 guys. It feels like a tournament. This is 4 solid weeks of mocks, 3, but I'm doubling up a week. So this is me essentially saying, I got to finish this drink and probably get some sleep so I can get to all of that tomorrow. But before I do, I'll spend a couple minutes. I got to sip this drink. Chat, I would love to answer at least a couple more questions if you guys have them. Just whatever you're thinking about. It could be this board in particular. It could be hey, I recently did a mock. What do you think about this range of players? Or use this mock as an example. Any questions you guys have, I'm quite curious about. And I think Classic might even be tuned in. I know I went through my mock breakdown. I don't think I broke down his. In fact, I know I didn't. So I'm going to pass out soon, but I think I'm going to give him at least 5-10 minute breakdown here, talking about what I like, where it would have gone different, and that sort of thing. So let's hop into it. Breaking down Classic Mike's draft. So at the 1-2 turn, we went Henry, London. Close for me. I think I probably would have gone CMC Achane. London is my third favorite pick there. So it's going to be CMC London or CMC Achane. Something along those lines. CMC Achane is just such the sexiest start for me, though, that I don't think I would be able to not do it. So that would have been something. Do I think Hawk makes a comeback? I do. I don't think he was fully recovered last year, and I think the offense had an identity kind of without him, but I do think he played good when he came back, and I think he'll play even better. I think it's going to be a good offense. It's a division that needs to put up points. The Addison potential suspension. Hawk just is such a good tight end. He's savvy. He's a good mismatch guy. I like him as a player. It more or less comes down to, I think tight ends have good years when they're game planned as like at least the second best weapon, and they have very good rapport with their quarterback. Their quarterback consistently like actively looks for the area of the field they like to run routes and make things happen. He's getting a quarterback that hasn't thrown in the ball before, so he does worry me a little bit, just in that I haven't seen him with his quarterback. But I love his talent and I love his role on the team, where I think he will consistently be the mismatch easy to go to. I don't think any team is like, we want to stop TJ Hawkinson from beating us, but he'll be the guy that ends up beating you, right? The days where, David Njoku was averaging 10 targets, Hawk was actually doing that for a little while too. I can see that happening a decent amount. Where he'll fail is if they don't throw the ball as much. The quarterback and the two running backs just really become, if they try to do their best to become a Green Bay and they run and keep the game close. But I don't think Kevin O'Connell's that guy. He wants to let his quarterback sling it. If he was going to let Darnold sling it, why wouldn't he want to develop his quarterback into a quarterback that can win a Super Bowl, sling it and run? Because what he did at Michigan won a title for them, but I don't think it's going to do it for these guys. So I do see him as a comeback. Like, he's just in a range of players where I'm like, I think Hawk is good. He actually still has an elevated range of outcomes, but year after year, I hate drafting tight ends in the middling rounds. Like, for me, it's to answer your question more succinctly, Rafi. I think Hawk is good, but I do think Hawk is closer in his role in the offense to Ferguson, to Kraft, to Strange. And I think Kittle is legitimately the wide receiver one. He is Kelsey the last several years for that team, where that's just not Hawk. I mean, there's JJ, and JJ is good, and there's two good backs that I think will both mix in a lot in a way that like Green Bay kind of did. Well, not with two backs. We didn't even just rushing heavy. And I think because of that, he's clearly not the one. Between Addison, the backs, and other usage, like, could he be the second pass catcher on the team? I do think so. I just think, again, he's closer to Ferguson, Kraft than he is to Kittle. Is I think honestly how that happens. Now you bring the point I'm thinking in my head too, which is if Addison is out, I don't think it could. If Addison's out 6 weeks, Rashee Rice better be out for the whole damn year, because that just doesn't make any sense. This is me just being personal here, where like if Addison for what he did gets like a significant punishment, then Rashee Rice should be out of the league. And I know that sounds hyperbolic, but I'm a parent now, and so there's like a level of like, you brought shame to a game and league and thing that I like, and it's hard to forgive. So outside of that, Hawk starting as the 2, he will probably eat a lot. And you're saying, well, if Kittle's the 1/2, Hawk's kind of the 2 for Kevin O'Connell led offense. I don't hate it, right? Because you look at Laporta right there with him, right? And Laporta's like clearly the third option in that offense, I think, at this point. And who's going to get used more in the passing game, Gibbs or Laporta? I don't know. Similar, right? Where Hawkinson is just easily that guy. I mean, Aaron Jones is going to soak up a fair amount of targets, but not to that extent. So If I'm being honest, I guess I can't see Hawk. I don't see him as a league winner, but maybe I should be looking at him a little bit more that way. He goes in a value range. Like by the end of the year, is there a scenario where Hawk goes 7-7, but we look at it and we'd be like, man, Hawk really should have been more of a 5th rounder. It's like I don't like taking a tight end at 7-7, but it's only because of what goes around him. He's a great pick. He is a great pick. I just don't know how to feel. I know that when I take Ferguson and 12, here's the other thing. If you're taking Hawkinson 7-7, I actually did this in a draft 3 weeks ago, I think. Okay. I ended up taking Hawkinson very specific. It might have been exactly the 7-7. It might have actually been. And I remember thinking to myself, here's how I made the pick. I said, okay, 7-7. I think, similar to this draft, I think Warren, Kelsey, and Njoku probably go in 8. And I don't even think Kraft always makes it back to me. So I asked myself, what if Njoku and Kraft don't make it back to me? If they don't, I think this is an awful choice. Where if I take the onesie here, I think the range of wide receiver running back in 7, 8, and 9 is close and condensed, and I should just make sure I don't get sniped. And I should take a guy that I think is good and is actually straight up at the top of the tier compared to those other folks. And then I won't have to worry about getting sniped. So when I take Hawk and everyone reaches for tight end, not reaches, but makes sense to take in the mid tiers, you end up getting this lovely gift of, Cooper Kupp or Reed or Igbok or whatever you wanted to do in 8. And if he didn't take Hawk here, I mean, what would you have done, right? You would have gone with a pick that felt like a reach anyways, just to still end up with a Kupp next round or something along those lines, right? So I think specifically the 7th round actually does make a decent amount of sense for Hawk. It's just about where his ADP finishes, because if you had taken him instead of Olave, I think you would, well, not you, but I think you would agree that that seems like a little more of a mistake. Like the Ridley, Olave, Hurts, Daniels, these are all clearly a tier break above Hawk. But once you break down to the next tier, Hawk could lead that tier, and I think that's what makes it a good pick. I'm talking on both sides of my mouth, but I'm doing so trying to play devil's advocate, see where I finish. I do finish that it's a good pick. And my final argument, the definitive argument, is it's either you take him, the guys I like, you either take him in 7 or Njoku in 8, or you hope you get Kraft in 9, but that's not going to happen anymore. 9-3, that'll creep up earlier and earlier, and then Njoku, Warren, Kraft, as soon as they're all in round 8, then Hawk in 7 feels really good because you're just not getting sniped, and because you're just taking it a round earlier than maybe you have to, but it's a flip-floppy thing, right? And later, I don't want to risk, maybe there's 3 guys that are all hoping to get Ferguson Strange, and if you get sniped again, it feels even grosser. So my reasons for liking him, the reasons we think he could be a good asset this year, we agree. I was more thinking, where do you take him? How does his ADP? There's a baseball term. I think it's VORP. It's value over replacement. That's a stat I often like to. I'm not looking at stats, but I'm thinking in my mind, what is the value over replacement, so I can figure out. Nick Zilek of Fantasy Football Advice, FFA. Love him a lot. Big fan. I'm a paid supporter of him as well. So I gotta support the guys that are really putting down. If I get to that level, and I will quite soon. Hopefully you guys can support me similarly, I hope. But for those reasons, yeah, Hawk's good. It's an opportunity cost thing. If you don't take him there, you should take somebody the next 2 rounds, and the difference at other positions are going to be negligible. So you're stopping getting sniped. You are starting a run versus finishing it. It's just a rearranging of a pick order. I agree Hawk should be good. I was just trying to figure out where he's a value, and I think he is a value there. We've arrived that Hawk is good. I don't want to reach for Hawk, but I am very happy if I see him at a decent value range, knowing that if it's not Hawk in 7, it's the other guys in 8. What's the difference of 1 round? So, hey, we got there, Rafi. Hopefully that was useful. I feel like I repeated myself about 100 times. I'm tired. Uh, that's the other thing. Sometimes I could probably stay up with you guys for another hour, but I don't think my content and my brain would be working as well as I would like it to for you folks that are graciously listening, watching, maybe both, all the above. Classic. If you watch this back, I'm going to give you a finished breakdown one way or another, man. I promised I would, so we're going to do it. It's going to be a little faster than I had imagined, but here we go. So, H.M. McCaffrey. Do I think what you did is a mistake? No, those are just my guys, and I'm going for them. I have a bone to pick with Henry. He's kind of off my board to some extent this year. Not off my board, but you get what I mean. I don't like that when the team isn't winning. If a single thing goes wrong and the team isn't winning a lot, he is very not good when the team's not winning. And I'm too in on Keaton Mitchell, and I think the other backs are going to get in there. I think Henry, their pass catchers on the Ravens are more middle of the road than good, if I'm being honest. I mean, Andrews was really anchoring them for a while, but Flowers, Andrews, I mean, Bateman's okay. Their pass catchers aren't like elite as a core. Their defense did a lot of work, and Lamar played fantastic, played out of his mind. There's just a lot of worlds where everything went right for the Ravens, and if any of them don't go right, Henry is not a league winner. He is until he isn't, and I'm just going to say he isn't. And when we're finally right, we're going to be right very, very hard. Like the difference when Henry doesn't have an RB1 overall season, it's not going to be 2 or 3. It's going to be a lot lower. And I'm saying in the first round, it's a quote I believe in, which is you don't win your league in the first round, but you can lose it. Henry's a pick that I don't think wins you a league, but could lose it. So for those reasons, I'm not picking any too much just because like Henry's a fine pick there. Like it's not a bad pick. It's just based on how I'm making my picks. I would go CMC Achane if I was going to have to go wide receiver, like in a 3 wide receiver league instead of 2. I would probably have to mix in London over one of them and go CMC or Achane with London. So would love the London pick. That feels fantastic. Coming back around in 3. I would have made the exact same pick. I told you, if you heard my breakdown, I was considering Marv like 50-50. I was taking Marv at 3-4. So, I mean, smash at 312. Like, he's for sure my pick at 312. It's not close. And then it's what do I do with my next pick? Chuba is good. And also their schedule to start the year, I think, is actually very favorable for Carolina for running backs, which, is not a sticky stat, but it's, maybe it's a small tiebreaker. I like the wide receivers here a lot. I mean, optimally, if I would have started with the CMC Achane pick here, if Marv falls to me, I'm smash grabbing Adams. And if I'm starting CMC Achane, Marvin Harrison, Adams, that's got to be in my top 10% of builds. That feels super good. So that would have been ideal here with running backs going off the board pretty heavy. I see why you wanted to stay even. I mean, it's a long way back to see what happens. So I think Hubbard is probably the safer choice. If Swift isn't there in 5, I mean, I'm probably definitely taking Caleb Johnson at some point, but like you're risking if Swift and Johnson weren't there at 512, I would have hated it if you didn't take Hubbard. If I didn't take Hubbard, however it would have happened. So Hubbard does feel like the safe pick there. That's also just a good pick. It's good for your build. It's good in general. It's maybe not like the highest upside pick, but it saves a lot of bad drafts from happening. And so I like it. I like it a lot, and I would have done it. Coming back around 5-6, we're super even. Tight end is not in contention for me. We went with Swift Waddle. I like the upside in Swift. He's startable from day one if the team is doing what he should. He should have all of the backfield, all the touches, all the pass catching. Swift is a great pick there, and I like Swift. Swift probably would have been. I'm trying to think it would have been. I like these wide receivers so much. It's so difficult, but it's easier to fade the running back when you're breaking down a mock, but when you are on the clock as a seasoned veteran drafter, you know what it's like to be boxed out at running back when you're not in the best ball format. So it would have been one of Swift, Caleb Johnson. I would have taken at least one of them. Probably not 2 because the wide receiver tier is so good. It would be so hard for me to leave this tier without Calvin Ridley. So it would have been Swift, Ridley, or Ridley, Caleb Johnson in some form. You went with Waddle. I'm huge on Ridley. I'm not anti-Waddle by any means. I'm a little nervous that the O-line got worse, and I think they'll have a little bit weak pass protection. Tua does get the ball out of his hands pretty quick, and that's something that if they use Waddle more for quick slants, like who am I thinking of? Eagles wide receiver 2, Devonta Smith. If they can use that, if we can turn Waddle into more of the Rashee Rice role and just do this quick hit power slot thing, I think Waddle has a pretty big outcome. I don't see Waddle having the same upside as Ridley right now. And like the Ridley Ward connection seems pretty elite in practice, where I don't think the Tua Waddle has been good since, like 4 years or something like that. So it's been a minute. It was 2022, 2021, something like that. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look, but we agree on similar ranges here. If not Swift, it would have been Caleb Johnson. I would have gone slightly different with Waddle, but build order would have been similar, slight different picks, but not too far away. Coming back around, I called it right away. I know, like Tracy, when you see him, I think it's easy for you to take him, and I don't hate it. I'm less in on Tracy, but it's not because I'm not in on him. I like other players in the range. I tend to take a lot of wide receivers here versus when Tracy tends to pop up. He's right around the same tier where I'm starting to look at. I want Ricky Pearsall, right? I want my Downs if he's still available. I want my Igbuka, and I can't take them if I take a Tracy. So hard to get there. And I know you're big on Ingram, so I think you saw the Tracy Ingram. You saw some guys, and it looked. And then these are fine picks. I do think specifically with the way the board fell, the Mahomes Kelsey would have been pretty hot. I mean, you could have Mahomes in a bounce back year with Kelsey while Rashee Rice is suspended, having a vintage year. That would have been. It gives you like a free chance to win. If Mahomes is like, oops, top 3 quarterback, and Kelsey is oops, top 3 tight end at the same time, you have a chance to just outright give yourself a deep playoff run with a snap of your fingers. I probably would have done that. It would have felt a little spicier, a little sexier. But you called it. You saw it. You heard it. You would have probably done the same. So if you weren't given picks and takes, I think you probably would have done that. Would have felt good. I would have probably done the same there. And if I wouldn't have gone that route, if I was going a more balanced approach and saying, hey, Mahomes is here, Kelsey's here, great. I am still going late at both. I would have gone. I'm pretty big on Warren, so if I wasn't going Kelsey Mahomes, I would have gone Warren or Njoku. I'm a little bit higher on Njoku right now than Warren, but it's close. And then I would have gone Ricky Pearsall, especially with the second injury to Juwan Jennings. I always want to say Jalen Cochran, Cowing for them. If I can't get Kittle, I'm really prioritizing Pearsall. I think he's going to be great for the team. So it would have been some combination of I'm seriously considering tight end or Pearsall. Everything else feels like a little bit of a reach. I don't think I would have fully gone to Jaden Reed there. I would have just locked up a tight end and then taken probably Pearsall as my alternate pick order. They're still going later at quarterback. Coming back around, we have the Knicks Sharps pick. I think it's a fine range for Knicks there, by the way. Feels actually kind of like a value. At the turn, you tend to reach at quarterback just a little bit, and that is what ended up happening. So Knicks, good pick there. I still would have maybe waited a little bit, but if you're slightly more in on Knicks, if you're above market for any reason, great pick there. I think with 4 running backs I already like, I probably, instead of going Sharps, we only have 3 wide receivers at this point in your particular draft. I would have gone otherwise with Charbonnet. I still like Matthew Golden, still has some upside, but for sure Pittman I like as when he's healthy. He's still the wide receiver 1 there, and if you can't get Downs, I really do like Pittman. And then grabbing Ayuk for the IR spot, I think that makes a lot of sense as well. So I would have gone wide receiver there, just because there's just a couple guys I still like that would have mattered and made sense. So that's kind of what I would have gone with the second one of those picks. And if I wasn't going Knicks, obviously there's 2 picks here, it probably would have been, I also have CMC if it were my draft, so it probably would have been Garendo and a wide receiver there just to fully lock up CMC as well. So if I'm saying if I was drafting from your spot, what I would have done with your exact build, I would have just Knicks is fine, if not Knicks wide receiver, but for sure one of my picks would have been Ayuk to pop in the IR spot, and then I would have considered Pittman or Golden as well and gone a little more wide receiver heavy there. Kicked the can down the road a little bit at running back. Coming back around, Hollywood Brown, amazing pick. I know he's like forever injured, and this will probably be another year where he just is never healthy. But man, if he is, and that narrative doesn't happen, I think he could be very good for that team. I think he was already pretty talented, and if Mahomes is a bounce back, deeper throws, that could be fantastic. So it just feels like a good value pick. And then, this is maybe a little controversial. I really do think Christian Kirk needs to be the pick over even Hollywood and Pat Bryant. You wanted Wan'Dale if he made it back to you, right? But I think right after Wan'Dale for me is Christian Kirk. But if you're not specifically on my pick order, that's the only other guy I would have said, hey, that's the guy there. But otherwise, it's exactly Hollywood Brown for me there. And it's between Pat Bryant. I kind of like Kyle Williams a little bit, especially like if Diggs faces a setback, a re-injury of any kind, or if they just desperately need a really good 2 and Kyle's just the guy. I think Kyle Williams there, after paying Cortland Sutton, I mean, it just feels like Pat Bryant and the ambiguous wide receiver room. I kind of want to buy into Kyle Williams over Pat Bryant a little bit, just in who I think will throw the ball more. But it's really close. It's paper thin. This is just me like talking about my rankings. And if I were on the clock, it would be close there. It really would. So it's in the same range of picks across 3 or 4 different leagues. I'm going to mix in different exposures. I don't have a crazy take. I'm always taking this guy here. I have those takes. I know what everyone in the comments says, where they're like, hey, I hate when people talk about exposures when some of us are only in 3 leagues. There's guys where like, nope, it's not how much of downs I'm going to own. I'm going to own every share of downs I can, right? I know there's guys where I'm taking them over anybody if they're there. Here, it's really close. It's really that 3-pack that's pretty close. But I definitely would have gone Christian Kirk with one of them, and it would have been between Hollywood and Kyle Williams for the other pick. If Knicks weren't picked there, I would absolutely pick Dak here. If we didn't already have Knicks, for sure, this would be Dak. If we didn't have Ingram, this would for sure be Ferguson, for sure. If we didn't have Knicks or Ingram, like we had potentially talked about, going Ferguson Dak here would have been awesome, plus the stack, right? So giving you some alternative options depending on the board fell, how I would do it. Your exact picks, though, made some sense for me. And I definitely needed to go wide receiver here for sure. And you picked 2 of the 4 I would have gone with. Coming back around, last 2 picks, finishing out the draft, Herbert was just too good of a value. And I get it. I would have taken one. I probably would have taken one of these upside quarterbacks and just seeing like, oh, oops, what if you drafted the 3rd best quarterback for week 1 as last pick of your draft? It feels like you can trade him for something at that point, or just know you can play the matchups and you will be very, very set at quarterback forever. And then Justice Hill, you have Henry. So this is a 6 bench format, grabbing in this particular mock, grabbing a handcuff. You do have the ability to. At 5 bench, I don't really do my own handcuffs, but at 6, I will. I am a bigger Keaton Mitchell guy. Just going to throw that out there. But I don't. I think Justice Hill's great. I think he's a good player. I think he's going to be a fine fill-in. Maybe a little bit less upside than I would personally prefer, but I know that Classic is really in on Hill. And if I looked at Hill the same way he did, I think that is absolutely the pick. So if your rankings say something about a guy, he's following it and doing what I think he should. If it were me, different set of rankings, it would have been a little bit different. Don't love the running back. I'd have to see who's left here, but I don't really necessarily like the range. So I would have probably taken a quarterback, but who else? Who else in this range? Probably Keenan Allen is the guy I would have taken. I think when he does sign, Keenan Allen is probably going to go in the 11th, 12th round after he signs. And so I just think he's a screaming value. And I also like Palmer a little bit. So I probably would have taken one of those wide receivers over Hill. But if I was in on Hill the way Classic is, I think that makes more sense. So Classic, that's a breakdown of your draft, my man. I'll have to have you rewatch the VOD for what you thought of it. So maybe you guys like it. Not sure if you agree with my breakdown, what you have done differently or the same. But now at least to some extent. And Aiden, hopping in the chat, man. Can't believe you're still alive. Hey, man. Me either sometimes. Please don't ever randomize me the 101 or the 112. Don't like the turns. It's so difficult for me to make back-to-back picks in these lobbies because I'm always getting sniped. Yeah, isn't that crazy where you're like, sometimes when you're at the turn, you're like, well, I know one of the picks, but I don't know what to do with the other one. When everyone just cleans out your queue and you're like, I don't even want to make one pick here. I got to make two. Yeah. Best thing I can say is you got to be really confident in your rankings and range of outcomes to know, hey, if I have to reach down the board 6 to 10 picks just because I got sniped and I'm at the end of a tier and I got to do what I got to do. If you don't like the turn, you got to over practice it. You got to get into these lobbies where everyone snipes you and you just got to embrace it and figure out a way how to make it work. And these competitive mocks at spots that I hate drafting from, I mean, you've seen spots where I've talked out of both sides of my mouth pretty hard because I can argue for and against my picks. It's these mocks and these mental breakdowns where I really affect my pick order. And instead of me being like the best ball guys where I'm like, well, cop out, I'll probably have a split exposure. This is where I figure out, okay, when the worst happens, I go here, or I go here, or I go here, and I live with it, and I fight another day. And throughout the course of the entirety of the draft, pick orders are going to flip-flop. And between these two picks and the next two picks, we're going to be okay. We're going to figure it out. It does feel rough when you're at the turn in such a competitive lobby, though. I definitely agree. So, hey, it makes us better. Certainly makes me better. I know that for sure. And I hope these deeper dives where I'm really not trying to be right, I'm trying to get smarter and figure out and level up my own thinking process, not on fantasy in general, because I'm always doing that, but specifically on the board, this year, situations, and how to solve this Rubik's Cube. So, yeah. No Larry Fitz here. Hey, man, I love me some Fitz. Larry, I'm a big Romo Dunes guy, right? And Larry Fitzgerald said some incredible things and is a huge fan of Rome. So I love Larry before that, but he loves Rome on the Bears. So yeah, I do like him. But no, fortunately, I never do any gimmick picks because I absolutely am. I want to nail the last couple of picks in my draft. I I can always convince myself that, hey, early, you can make a lot of cases. Late is where I actually make my biggest regrets, where I'm like, I could have drafted the league winner. I could have figured it out. He was on my list of guys I like. I just couldn't get him 2 or 3 pick orders higher. So I really do focus on these last rounds a lot. It's also a dynasty thing. Like anyone, like I like 3rd and 4th round picks in dynasty. I'll throw them in trades all the time. So maybe it's just me wanting to min max to the best. So yeah, do I like it when you guys do it? Heck yeah. I mean, I'm half a bottle of gin in here. Like this is a sip and chill sesh, right? We're trying to have fun. I mentioned earlier, but I'll bring it up again, man. Like, and I'll get back to the other point here in a second, but I am not often on Fantasy X, Fantasy Twitter, or whatever, because I grew up watching the fantasy football. It's not grew up. I mean, I'm 34 right now, so like I grew up fantasy wise with the fantasy footballers. And the one thing I always appreciated was that level of we're very confident we are at an elite level of what we do, but the whole point is to have a lot of fun while being the best. Not about trying to prove you're the best and keep proving you're the best and fighting with everyone else and my rankings are better. And it feels like a lot of that is how that space is on X in the fantasy football community. Just hot takes and spicy takes and a little too antagonistic. It's like the jokes are not there. The LOLs, the puns, the hyperbolic where you're clearly kidding. It's not enough of that, and it's way too much try hard stuff. So yeah, the gimmick picks are fun. They are fun in a real way because we know that we're all very good at what we just did, and we will wipe the floor in half of our leagues, if not more. So keep the fun up, keep the memes up, keep the gimmick picks up, have some fun, bring it out in your league. I think the fantasy space needs to always be extremely fun first, extremely competitive second. And there's nothing wrong with having a lot of both. But when we lose, you can't lose the entertainment. You can lose some of the competition, but you cannot lose the entertainment, or it kills the sport. So I know I just went on a little bit too long of a rant on a gimmick pick actually being important, but I can tell you, when the fantasy streets, and you guys have been in some leagues where it's not fun. How do you guys go about your league selection, right? I would always go in the fantasy footballers forums to make sure I was in leagues with like-minded, friendly, entertaining degenerates. And I was so taken by Get Right in the community, and I just wanted to be a part of it and stay a part of it and help it grow and thrive. And we're still doing that. So anyways, I'm going on a total late night rant about gimmick picks and having fun, but man, keep it fun. The guys I respect in business, taking it a whole nother level, are folks that are always in a good mood, having fun, slapping jokes, because they're always switched on. They're always a high-end operator. The competition is implied. We're always trying to win. But while we're constantly in that cycle, we're always going to have a good time, right? The try hard at the poker table, that's not fun, man. Like, you can take my money if you're a pro, but like, buy me a couple drinks and have a good time while you're doing it at a minimum, right? So, actually, we got to go back to your other one here. Totally agree. Really think I should have gone Ricky Pearsall, Reed Shakir over Jennings and Judkins. That one I was kicking myself later on down the line for sure. Well, hey, it's why we do it. I am a huge advocate for, if a pick feels good but also feels gross, you have to click the button on the gross stuff, or the close stuff, or the maybe stuff, or the push it as hard as you can stuff, to then take a breath, look back, and see how much regret you're filled with, and then go a level deeper and say why. You know, Hill and DK are that for me. I've had to make a lot of weird build picks occasionally to think about it and analyze it a little bit more, right? And I think this was probably a beneficial analysis. If you needed to make that decision in order to analyze it to a greater degree and figure out what you really truly think about it. So I think it was valuable. But glad we're in agreement there. I think I do think that would have been a better pick order for you, and glad we're in sync there. So always good to agree, good to disagree too, but all good there. The Meat Higgins bit, that was amazing. Right, my goodness, dude, that was a thing, man. There's something about watching Andy Holloway just lose, like, as the host when things are just going wrong. There's something just so endearing and genuine about, like, a host of I mean, they're not a serious show, but they're serious in terms of, like, they're huge mainstream, and that happened, and then he doubles down on it later on once more. Yeah, wow, that was an all-timer for sure. And they had I think they have been slipping a little bit in the comedy element for a little while, just because I think that, you get so big, it's hard to keep the inside jokes, and that was that was absolutely the best moment of the off season for me too. That was insane. I'm gonna go back and watch it with another half bottle of gin and just have a good time. That was sick. So I know I have nothing to do with the fantasy footballers, but for you guys don't, I mean, they got me into this quite a bit. I have a plaque hanging right, you can't see, but right up there, signed by all the ballers from many years ago. They sent that to me for my 30th birthday, which was incredibly kind of them. My wife reached out, got a hold of Brooksy, and was like, I only know your Brooks because all the inside jokes my husband says, and I'm not going to stop hounding you until you send him something dope for his 30th. So I got a sick wife, and it was so sick that they legitimately just mailed me some autograph stuff. So forever, a lot of loyalty to those guys. But no offense, I would like it to be my turn at some point here. I compete against him in an industry league one day. That's the dream. That's the goal. We're going to keep it alive. Not happening this year, but next year, if I get my act together with everything this season into next off season, maybe we start doing that. So, yes, sir. You know what? I'll be signing off as well because it is now 12:30 my time. I've just been nursing this. I have not finished this, but I certainly have to. And yeah, busy day tomorrow. So, Aiden, always a pleasure. love being in leagues with you. Appreciate the engagement. Appreciate the questions. Appreciate so many of you tuning in and listening and being interested. I appreciate it. It's fun. I like hanging out with you guys. So I guess I'll just wrap it up quickly with, don't forget, mock draft tournament. It will start on Monday. You don't need to do anything Monday, though. The idea is I'm going to put mock draft links for all of next week's mocks. And then about halfway through next week, as it's filled up, I'm going to release all of the mock draft links for the following week. 4 full mock lobbies open, 48 slots available. There will be so many spots. If we're worried about getting into a mock, it's because well over 100 people all wanted to get into this tournament, which would be awesome. It will be incredible. But if I have to work myself to the bone to create more mocks and do this in a different way and double up everything, I'll figure it out. But check out the mock draft tournament as it comes up. Like every streamer on the planet, if you haven't, please do try to get into the Discord, subscribe. If you're already subscribed, by the way, after the video's done, liking our stuff. If you're checking out a video and you just go through and 3 or 4 videos, it takes you 10 seconds, but it actually does mean a lot to us, and the algorithm helps other people find us. So my humble request, if you want to support the show, everyone's broke in the whole world right now. I know I am a little bit. Certainly don't go outside your means to support the show. Don't ever do that. But for free, you can certainly help us by hitting that like button, promoting it a little bit. I really appreciate that. So thanks for that. And when we do get monetized, we are fully monetized. We're not really a super chat type of hardcore live stream doing that type of thing. But as we come out with some products coming soon, where we're more ranking advice columns, that type of thing, more of a membership, it's going to be cheap. But when that comes out, any of you that consider donating to the stream or buying anything, that will allow us some runway to keep doing more and growing. So a future thanks to anyone sticking around with us for that kind of a thing. I might need a little bit of help from the fans, from the folks that like listening to us, mocking with us, just like the community. Fans is honestly not the best word for you guys. You guys are our community members, community ambassadors for the game, for what we do. I might need a little bit of extra help monitoring, adminning, running some of the mocks. I'm planning on being in every single one, live stream in every single one, because I have a problem. But when I can't and life happens, if any of you guys want to step up and help, I'm all about it. So I think I'm out of words to say. Certainly not a drink to drink. But thank you guys. It's been real. And get in the Discord. Share some Dynasty rosters with me. Ask me some questions. Ask anyone else in here. If you ask me a good enough question, I will literally write you a book. I will start typing until my hands bleed, and I can't stop until the thought's finished. So while I'm in free mode, definitely get them out there. You guys have been great. Thanks for hanging out and engaging. And let's go ahead and listen to a nice outro song to end the night. Good night, Cap. Cheers, patrons. You guys are legends.
White fantasy is the play. Marking often, but I tune every Friday. Strategies provided.